Have you ever felt like there's an invisible force field surrounding your dreams, keeping success just out of reach no matter how hard you try? You work tirelessly, you pray faithfully, you do everything right, yet somehow that breakthrough never comes. It's as if you're living behind glass walls. You can see the abundance on the other side, you can almost touch it, but you just can't break through. What if I told you that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered a spiritual technology so powerful that it can shatter these invisible barriers in just 60 seconds a day? Now, before we dive deep into this life-changing revelation, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from today. I absolutely love seeing our global community come together. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell, because what we're exploring in our upcoming videos will transform the way you understand spiritual abundance forever. Here's the truth that most people never realize. Those financial blockages you're experiencing aren't random. They're not bad luck. They're not even about your circumstances. Has this ever happened to you? You get close to a major opportunity and suddenly everything falls apart at the last moment. A business deal collapses. A promotion goes to someone less qualified. Money comes in, but it flows right back out just as quickly. It's like fighting an opponent you can't see, wrestling with chains you can't touch. Florence Scovel Shinn called this phenomenon spiritual warfare, and she understood something profound that changes everything. These invisible walls are created and sustained by something most people never address. They're held in place by energy, by consciousness, by ancient patterns that live in the unseen realm. And here's what might surprise you. These barriers aren't nearly as solid as they appear. In fact, they're more like holograms than concrete walls. Stay with me here, because this is where it gets fascinating. What Scovel Shinn discovered was that most people are trying to climb over these walls, tunnel under them, or break through them with force. But there's a completely different approach, one that doesn't require years of struggle or endless effort. It requires a shift in consciousness so radical that the walls simply dissolve. And the key to this shift? A 60-second declaration that rewires your spiritual frequency and aligns you with a force more powerful than any blockage could ever be. But this isn't just about repeating words. This is about becoming what Scovel Shinn called a blockage breaker. Someone who understands that these invisible prisons only have the power we give them. What you're about to discover in this teaching might challenge everything you thought you knew about prayer, manifestation, and spiritual breakthrough. Because the moment you truly grasp this principle, the moment you step into this identity, something extraordinary happens. What's happening right now is bigger than just your individual breakthrough. There's a shift occurring in the collective consciousness, a spiritual awakening that's pulling together people who are tired of living small, tired of watching their potential waste away behind invisible barriers. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that transformation isn't just a solo journey. When you step into this identity as a blockage breaker, you're not just changing your own reality. You're joining a movement of people who've made the same decision, who've chosen to stop accepting limitation as their destiny. This is about reclaiming what was always meant to be yours, your divine inheritance, the abundance that flows naturally when the channels are cleared. Here's something most people don't realize about wealth and prosperity. The principles that create lasting abundance aren't new. They're not trendy manifestation techniques or modern self-help formulas. The truth is, there's ancient wisdom that's been used for thousands of years to build dynasties, to create generational wealth, to establish empires that lasted centuries. These aren't secrets in the sense that they were hidden. They're secrets because most people simply never learned to look in the right places. The Torah contains a complete wealth system, a set of spiritual laws about money, prosperity, and divine flow that have been tested across 3 millennia of human history. Think about this for a moment. Why do certain families, certain communities, seem to have an almost supernatural ability to create and maintain wealth across generations? It's not just about business acumen or intelligence. There's something deeper at work, an understanding of how spiritual energy and material reality interact, how consciousness shapes circumstance, how aligning with certain universal principles opens doors that remain locked to everyone else. This is the hidden truth that changes everything once you grasp it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this, because what Scovel Shinn discovered wasn't just theory. She found that when you combine this ancient wisdom with the 60-second practice, something remarkable happens. The blockages don't just crack, they dissolve completely. But first, you need to understand exactly what these invisible walls are made of, why they have such power over your financial reality, and how your own consciousness might be the very thing keeping them in place. The revelations that follow will challenge your assumptions about how prosperity actually works, and more importantly, they'll show you the exact mechanism by which these barriers can be dismantled forever. If you want more of this real spiritual wisdom, subscribe now. This is just the beginning of what we're uncovering together. If this is resonating with you, if you're feeling that pull towards something greater, write in the comments right now. I'm ready for breakthrough. Let me see who's truly committed to this journey. Let's get brutally honest about what's really happening in your life. You wake up every day with good intentions. You work harder than most people around you. You're not lazy. You're not making excuses. You're genuinely putting in the effort. You pray. You're a good person. You try to do the right things. And yet, there's this maddening pattern that keeps repeating itself. You get close to something significant. You can feel success within your grasp, and then at the last possible moment, it evaporates. This isn't coincidence. This is the invisible wall doing exactly what it was designed to do, keeping you in place while making you believe you're moving forward. The most frustrating part of this experience is that you can't see what you're fighting against. If it were a visible obstacle, you could strategize, you could find a way around it, you could at least understand what you're dealing with. But this is different. It operates in the realm of the unseen, in the space between intention and manifestation, in that gap where dreams somehow transform into disappointments. You've experienced it countless times. The business opportunity that was guaranteed suddenly falls through because of circumstances beyond your control. The promotion you deserved goes to someone less qualified, and nobody can really explain why. Money flows into your life, and just as quickly, unexpected expenses drain it away. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, over and over again, until you start wondering if you're cursed, if there's something fundamentally wrong with you, if you're simply not meant for greater things. This is the prison Florence Scovel Shinn was talking about. It's not made of concrete and steel. It's constructed from energy patterns, from unconscious beliefs, from spiritual blockages that most people don't even know exist. The walls are invisible, but their impact is devastatingly real. You can feel them every time opportunity slips through your fingers. You can sense them in that sinking feeling when yet another plan crumbles. The prison becomes so familiar that you start accepting it as normal, as just the way life is for you. But here's the revelation that changes everything. These walls only appear solid because you haven't yet learned what they're actually made of. The hidden truth is that every repeated failure, every pattern of almost but not quite success, is actually showing you exactly where your invisible barriers are located. Most people see these patterns as evidence that they're destined to fail. But what if they're actually a map, a diagnostic tool revealing precisely where the blockages exist? This shift in perspective is the first crack in the prison walls, because once you understand that these patterns aren't random, once you recognize them as symptoms of something deeper, you can finally begin to address the root cause rather than just treating the surface problems. If you've been experiencing this cycle, if you recognize yourself in what I'm describing, write in the comments, "I see the pattern now." The ancient wisdom keepers had a name for these invisible barriers. In Kabbalistic tradition, they're called klipot, which literally translates to shells or husks. Imagine this for a moment. Your soul is like a brilliant light source, constantly radiating potential, creativity, and connection to divine abundance. But over time, through your words, your thoughts, your actions, and even through the negative energy that others direct toward you, layers begin to form around that light. These layers are the klipot, and they act like insulation, blocking the natural flow of blessing that's meant to reach you. This isn't mystical nonsense. It's a precise description of how spiritual energy actually works in the unseen dimensions of reality. Here's where this gets really interesting. You could be the most talented person in any room. You could have skills that far surpass everyone around you. You could have ideas that are genuinely brilliant, insights that could change industries, potential that's absolutely undeniable. But if your pipeline is blocked, if these shells have accumulated around your soul, none of that talent matters. It's like having the most advanced water filtration system connected to a clogged pipe. The water is there, pure and abundant, flowing constantly from the source, but it can't reach you because the pathway is obstructed. You remain thirsty while standing next to an infinite supply. This is why so many people experience that bizarre phenomenon where they work twice as hard as others but get half the results. It's not about effort. It's not about worthiness. It's about flow. The Kabbalists call this divine flow shefa, and it's always streaming toward you, always available, never depleted. But these klipot, these spiritual blockages, they're like plaque buildup in an artery. They don't completely stop the flow. They just restrict it enough to create constant struggle, chronic limitation, perpetual, almost but not quite success. The tragedy is that most people spend their entire lives trying to force more water through a blocked pipe instead of addressing the blockage itself. What creates these shells? Sometimes it's your own negative self-talk, the stories you tell yourself about why you can't, why you're not enough, why success isn't meant for you. Sometimes it's the accumulated weight of past failures, disappointments that calcified into beliefs about what's possible for you. Sometimes it's the jealousy, criticism, or doubt that others project onto you, energy that attaches itself to your field and creates resistance. And here's the part that most people never consider. These layers build up gradually, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize you're living in a spiritual cage and you have no idea how you got there. The transformation begins when you understand that these blockages aren't permanent. They're not your destiny. They're just accumulated debris that can be cleared once you know the right method. If this explanation is clicking for you, drop in the comments. Clear the pipeline. There's a particular kind of suffering that comes from living with these blockages, and it's worse than obvious failure. It's the quiet desperation of knowing, deep in your bones, that you were designed for something greater, yet being unable to break through to it. Yutzinio. Wake up each morning with that gnawing feeling that your life is smaller than it should be, that your impact is muted, that your gifts are dying inside you unused. This isn't dramatic tragedy. It's slow spiritual erosion, watching your potential leak away year after year while you remain trapped behind invisible barriers you can't even name. The real agony isn't in never having dreams. It's in having them and watching them wither just beyond your reach, close enough to see but impossible to grasp. What happens over time is even more insidious. The repeated failures, the constant disappointments, the endless cycle of hope followed by crushing setback, they don't just hurt in the moment. They leave residue. They create a poison that seeps into your consciousness, and that poison is cynicism. At first, you believe wholeheartedly that things will change. You pray with genuine faith. You take action with real conviction. You trust that breakthrough is coming. But after enough times of nothing changing, after enough prayers that seem to bounce off the ceiling, after enough plans that crumble despite your best efforts, something shifts inside you. You start to believe that maybe this manifestation stuff doesn't really work. Maybe prayers are just words we say to make ourselves feel better. Maybe God isn't listening. Or worse, maybe you're just not the kind of person God listens to. This is where the true devastation occurs. The external walls were bad enough, but now they've migrated inward. Now they're part of your identity, woven into how you see yourself and your place in the universe. You become resigned to limitation. You lower your expectations. You stop dreaming big because the disappointment hurts too much. You tell yourself stories about being realistic, about accepting what is, about not getting your hopes up. But underneath all that rationalization, there's a deep grief for the life you know you were meant to live, but have convinced yourself you can't have. The prison isn't just around you anymore, it's inside you, and that's when it becomes almost unbreakable, almost but not quite. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that this cynicism is the final victory of the blockage. Once you believe that change is impossible, once you've internalized the walls, they no longer need to exert external force. You police yourself. You keep yourself small. You sabotage your own opportunities before they even fully form, because deep down, you don't believe. They're meant for you anyway. The impact of this mindset ripples through every decision you make, every risk you don't take, every dream you abandon before it has a chance to materialize. But here's what she also discovered. This poison has an antidote, and it's more powerful in the present moment. To drop out of the mental chatter and into a deeper state of awareness. Then you're going to speak the prayer we've been exploring, but you're going to speak it with everything you've learned about Prince consciousness, about the nature of illusions, about the truth that there is only one power. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, B'Shem Hashem Hakol Efshar. As you repeat these words for 60 seconds, you're simultaneously holding a very specific visualization in your mind. You're seeing that wall you identified, that specific limitation you named, and you're watching it turn to dust. Not crumbling slowly, not chipping away bit by bit, but dissolving instantly in the presence of truth, like a shadow vanishes when light floods the room. Feel the reality of God's oneness permeating your entire being. Feel the certainty that everything is possible. This isn't wishful thinking. This is you aligning with what's actually true at the deepest level of reality. You're not trying to convince yourself or force belief. You're simply allowing yourself to resonate with truth that exists, whether you acknowledge it or not. Those 60 seconds are your daily recalibration, your reset button that pulls you out of limitation consciousness and back into alignment with infinite possibility. But here's where most people miss the crucial element that makes this practice actually work. The prayer creates the internal shift, but that shift must be followed by external alignment. After you finish your 60-second declaration, you must go about your day as if the wall is already gone. This is the faith component that activates everything. You can't pray like a prince and then spend the rest of your day acting like a beggar. Your actions must match your declaration. Your decisions must reflect your new consciousness. Your choices must demonstrate that you truly believe what you just declared. If your wall is debt, you create a repayment plan not from panic or desperation, but from calm certainty that the resources will appear. If your wall is an income ceiling, you ask for that raise or increase your prices with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their value and expects it to be recognized. The action is what tells the universe, and more importantly tells your own subconscious mind, that you're serious about this transformation. Faith, without corresponding action, is just a pleasant meditation. But faith expressed through aligned behavior becomes the bridge between spiritual truth and physical manifestation. If you're committing to this 30-day practice right now, right? I'm starting today. The ancient wisdom texts are clear on this point. Faith without works is dead. It's not enough to pray powerfully and then sit back waiting for miracles to fall from the sky. The prayer opens the channel, shifts your consciousness, dissolves the internal blockage, but you must then walk through the opening that's been created. Your actions are the physical manifestation of your faith, the evidence that you truly believe what you declared in those 60 seconds. When your behavior contradicts your prayer, you're sending mixed signals to the universe, and mixed signals produce confused results. This is where the transformation moves from the spiritual realm into tangible reality. Let me share what happened with someone who truly understood this principle. David was a salesman who had been earning essentially the same income for 5 consecutive years. He was good at his job, consistently hit his quotas, did everything right. But there was an invisible ceiling. He couldn't break through. Every year his income would fluctuate slightly, but always settle back around the same number, as if there was a magnetic force pulling him back to that level no matter what he did. He started the 60-second prayer protocol, and on day 10, something shifted in him. He woke up that morning after his prayer practice with a clarity and certainty he'd never experienced before. It wasn't confidence in the traditional sense, it was deeper than that. It was a knowing that the ceiling was an illusion, and he was done pretending it was real. He walked into his boss's office that same day, and instead of nervously requesting a raise like he might have done before, instead of building a case and hoping for approval, he calmly presented his new compensation structure. He didn't frame it as a question or a negotiation. He stated it as a fact, explained that this was his new rate, and discussed how they would implement it. The energy he brought into that conversation was completely different from anything his boss had experienced from him before. There was no desperation, no pleading, no trying to convince. Just quiet, unshakable certainty. His boss, who had known David for years and had always seen him as competent but somewhat timid, was genuinely stunned by this transformation. And here's what's remarkable. His boss agreed on the spot to a 50% raise. Not 20%, not 30%, but exactly what David had stated. No counteroffer, no negotiation, just immediate agreement. What happened in that room wasn't that David developed better persuasion skills or made a more compelling logical argument. What happened was that David had stepped into a new identity, and his boss was simply responding to the frequency David was now broadcasting. The universe always mirrors back what you truly embody, and David was embodying someone for whom that income ceiling no longer existed. If you're ready to take that kind of bold action, write, "I'm stepping into my new identity." Then there's Sarah, whose story shows how this principle works even when the stakes feel terrifying. She had been running a small online business for years, and it had plateaued at a frustrating level. She was making enough to survive, but not enough to truly thrive, and every strategy she tried to grow seemed to hit that same invisible resistance. After starting the prayer protocol, something remarkable happened on day 22. She had an idea for a completely new product line, something bold and different from anything she'd done before. The old Sarah would have dismissed it immediately as too risky, too expensive, too far outside her comfort zone. But the Sarah who had been practicing this prayer for 3 weeks was operating from a different consciousness. She felt this internal knowing that the wall of stagnation was dissolving, and she needed to act in alignment with that truth. So she did something that terrified her. She took out a loan to invest in this new product line, despite having no clear plan for how she'd repay it if things didn't work out. This wasn't reckless gambling. It was faith expressed through action. She was acting as if the limitation no longer existed, betting everything on the truth she'd been declaring every morning. The product line launched, and within weeks it went viral. Something about it resonated with people in a way she could never have predicted. Her business exploded, growing 500% in a single year. She repaid that terrifying loan in 3 months and built something far beyond what she'd been stuck in for years. The breakthrough didn't come from better business strategy. It came from her willingness to act from her new identity before the external evidence confirmed it was safe. Michael's story reveals yet another dimension of how this works. He was drowning in credit card debt, the kind that keeps you awake at night, that creates constant anxiety about every expense. For years, he couldn't even look at his bills without feeling sick. He started the protocol, and something shifted in him. For the first time, he actually created a budget, faced his numbers with courage instead of avoidance, and called his credit card companies to negotiate lower interest rates. These weren't superhuman actions. They were just things he'd been too paralyzed by shame and fear to do before. 3 months into his practice, something extraordinary happened. He received notification of an inheritance from a distant relative he barely knew, someone he hadn't spoken to in decades. The amount was eerily precise, exactly what he needed to completely eliminate his credit card debt. Not close, not approximately, but exact to the dollar. The prayer hadn't just dissolved his internal blocks around money, it had cleared the channel for an external solution that was apparently waiting to manifest the moment he was ready to receive it. If these stories are igniting hope in you, write, "My breakthrough is coming." What Florence Scovel Shinn discovered as her practice deepened was that this prayer becomes exponentially more powerful when you expand your focus beyond your own limitations. Once you've experienced breakthrough in your own life, once you've seen your walls dissolve, there's a natural evolution that happens. You start to see the invisible prisons other people are living in. You notice the blockages affecting your friends, your family members, your community. And here's where the practice takes on a dimension that most people never discover. You can use this same 60-second prayer on behalf of others who are struggling. The ancient Kabbalistic wisdom teaches something profound about intercession. When you pray for someone else's breakthrough, when you use your spiritual energy to help dissolve another person's walls, you're actually answered first. This isn't selfishness masquerading as altruism. It's a fundamental principle of how spiritual energy flows. By becoming a channel for blessing rather than just a recipient, you align yourself with the same frequency that God operates on. You're no longer just consuming miracles, you're distributing them. And the universe always gives more supply to its best distributors. When you pray for your friend's financial struggle, for your family member's health crisis, for your community's collective challenges, you're accelerating your own transformation while serving others. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, because this objection comes up every time someone encounters teaching this powerful. It sounds like magic. It feels too simple, too direct, maybe even manipulative. Let me address this head on, because it's crucial you understand what's actually happening here. This is not magic in any sense of that word. Magic implies manipulating reality, bending the universe to your will through secret formulas or supernatural tricks. That's not what's occurring with this practice. What Florence Scovel Shinn is teaching you is spiritual physics, the fundamental laws of how consciousness and reality interact. When you declare that God is one, you're not casting a spell, you're aligning with the deepest truth of existence. When you state that everything is possible, you're not trying to force the universe into compliance. You're removing the static, the interference, the spiritual plaque that's been blocking a signal that's already broadcasting. Think of it like tuning a radio. The music is always there, transmitted constantly from the station. But if your receiver is full of static, if it's not properly aligned with the frequency, you can't hear it. This prayer is the tuning mechanism that clears your receiver and locks onto the frequency of divine abundance that's perpetually available. The transformation that happens isn't about gaining power over reality. It's about removing the false beliefs that have been distorting your perception of what's already true. If this distinction makes sense to you, comment. It's physics, not magic. Another objection that comes up frequently is about the Hebrew language itself. People worry that because they don't speak Hebrew, because they can't pronounce these ancient words correctly, maybe the prayer won't work for them. Let me put that concern to rest immediately. The power is not in perfect pronunciation. It's not in the specific sounds of the Hebrew syllables, though there is something beautiful about using the original language. The real power is in the intention, in the consciousness you bring to the words, in the depth of understanding behind what you're declaring. If you speak this prayer in English with absolute conviction, saying, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. In the name of God, everything is possible." With your whole heart fully aligned with the truth of those words, it will activate the same spiritual mechanism. God doesn't only understand Hebrew. The divine source comprehends the language of consciousness, the frequency of sincere intention, the vibration of genuine faith. What matters is that your emotional center, that deep limbic system in your brain that processes feeling and meaning, is fully engaged. When your logical mind and your emotional being are coherent, when they're broadcasting the same message in unified harmony, that's when the breakthrough happens, regardless of which language you're using. The third objection is perhaps the most important one to address, because it's the one that keeps people from persisting long enough to see results. What if it doesn't work? What if I do this faithfully for 30 days and nothing changes? Here's the truth that Florence Scovel Shinn once burned into your awareness. The prayer always works. Always. Without exception. The real question isn't whether the prayer works, it's whether you're working the prayer. Are you saying it with genuine conviction or just going through the motions? Are you acting throughout your day as if it's already true? Or are you praying like a prince and then living like a beggar? Are you persisting through the weeks when nothing seems to be changing externally, trusting that the internal shift is happening even when you can't see evidence yet? Think of it this way. Your role is to plant the seed and water it consistently. That's your responsibility, and it's the only part you can control. You don't make the seed grow. You can't force it to sprout faster by digging it up to check on it every day. The growth mechanism is built into the seed itself, and the divine intelligence handles that part. Your job is simply to show up with your 60 seconds every morning, to act in alignment with your declaration, and to trust the process even when your rational mind screams that nothing is happening. The gap between planting and harvest is where most people abandon the practice right before the breakthrough would have occurred. If you're committed to seeing this through no matter how long it takes, write, "I will persist." So let's make this immediately practical. There are 3 actions you're going to take tonight, not next week, not when you feel ready, but tonight before you go to sleep. The first is something we already touched on, but now you're going to do it with even more precision. You're going to name your wall with brutal, unflinching honesty. No sugarcoating, no making it sound less serious than it is. Write down exactly what financial prison you're living in right now. The more specific and honest you are, the more powerful your breakthrough will be. The second action is to set up your accountability system. Take out your phone right now and create a recurring alarm for 60 seconds every single morning. Label it breakthrough in all capital letters. This isn't a suggestion, it's a non-negotiable commitment you're making to yourself. That alarm is your daily appointment with transformation, and you don't miss appointments that matter. Choose a time when you can be alone and undisturbed, even if it means waking up 10 minutes earlier than usual. Those 60 seconds are the most important investment you'll make in your future. The third action requires courage, because it's where faith becomes visible. You're going to decide right now on one specific action you'll take tomorrow that demonstrates you believe the wall is already gone. This can't be something comfortable or easy. It needs to be something that makes you slightly nervous, something the old you would avoid. If your wall is debt, maybe it's calling that creditor you've been afraid to contact. If it's an income ceiling, maybe it's having that conversation about your value. If it's a stagnant business, maybe it's investing in that marketing campaign you've been hesitating on. The discomfort you feel is actually the sound of your prison bars beginning to bend. The first physical evidence that the wall is losing its grip on you. But here's something Florence Scovel Shinn understood that amplifies everything exponentially. The ancient Talmud teaches that a prisoner cannot free himself from prison. Sometimes you need someone on the outside holding the key for you, maintaining faith when yours wavers. This is why finding a breakthrough partner is so crucial. You need to identify one person who's also committed to this journey, someone you can share your wall with while they share theirs. Every single day, you send each other a simple text. The wall is dust. That's it. Just those 4 words. This creates what the Jewish tradition calls a minyan, a quorum that generates collective spiritual power far beyond what either of you could access alone. When your faith is weak, their faith holds you up. When they're struggling to believe, your certainty becomes their anchor. Together, you form an unbreakable fortress of belief that the walls simply cannot penetrate. If you're ready to find or be that partner for someone, write, "Looking for my breakthrough partner." So here we are. You've made it through this entire journey with me, and that means something. It means you're serious about this. It means you're not just consuming content, you're actually ready for transformation. The fact that you're still here tells me you're part of that spiritual army we talked about at the beginning, the people who refuse to accept limitation as their destiny. If you've found value in what we've explored together, today If something here resonated with your soul, do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. This isn't just random spiritual content. This is ancient wisdom that actually works, delivered in a way that makes sense for how we live now. There's so much more we're going to uncover together, and I don't want you to miss any of it. And let me know you made it to the end by writing in the comments. This message was meant for me. I read every single comment, and there's something powerful about declaring your commitment publicly. It makes it real. It creates accountability. It connects you with everyone else on this same journey. If this video sparked something in you, hit that like button. It helps this message reach more people who are ready for breakthrough, more souls who've been living behind invisible walls and need to know there's a way out. Before you go, there's another video I need you to watch. It goes even deeper into the practical mechanics of how this transformation unfolds in your daily life. You'll find it right here. Click on it and continue this journey with me. We're just getting started, and what comes next builds on everything you've learned today in ways that